first email I sent is, if you look at the 15-year time frame, I was comparing, they have a 30-year with 22 years left on it.
Uh-huh.
I put it in a 15-year, and...
Is this Robert and Deli Harris, or which one?
Robert and Deli Harris, right.
All right, so I'm going to click on them, and let's take a look. So they've got a current mortgage here. Look at the details. 972 property, 425. They owe 370. Got taxes and stuff. All looks good here. All right, let's go over to the borrow page. It says they have 262 months to go on the existing. They've got you're looking at a 15-year first, a 30, and a 30. And looks like you've got roughly a little extra built in for each of the closing costs. So you've got a wash on the closing costs, and no net out of pocket like that. Pre-tax payments, you got a 130 increase, 738 decrease, and a 769 decrease on monthly cash flow like that. Hit the refresh here just to make sure we've got our right number in there. I noticed that adjusted. So whenever you're changing things around and you're going to the wealth impact, always, just as a tip, hit the refresh. That way you'll make sure you've got the highest of the payment options selected there. So if we're using
the payment they're making now and not saving money. I mean,
that's correct. It's going to baseline off of their highest payment of the options you have available. So if you change it around, you refresh, it's always going to pick the highest and say, if you're going to refinance to a 15, then you would be paying $32.41 or $32.40.67. So you could pay that same amount on your existing mortgage or on any of these options. And what that does is it really makes it simple when you go into explaining the financial impact, because you now know that no matter what they do, they're making the same payment over the time period that you select. So you're really normalizing and showing them the real wealth impact over that time frame. You can do a minimum payment and do it this way, and they're just going to assume that they keep each financing separately and they make the minimum payment for each, and it's still giving you an accurate comparison, but you're no longer comparing apples to oranges because you're comparing different payments. So that's why I always recommend that you use the fixed payment, because it's going to be the simplest to explain, and also it's going to be the most accurate apples to apples comparison for the client over time. So in this case, you got a 30-year time frame, but remember you only had 237 months to go. So what happens is after you get to 238 months, there's no longer any liability because it's been paid off. So the extra cash flow would go into their checking or savings account. So we're following what would happen in real life to make sure that we're being accurate and comparing. Here they're going to be debt-free in 180 months. So starting in 181 months, that payment difference is going into their checking or savings account. So you can see that number's larger. Here they could be debt-free in 191 or 189 because they're, if you click repaying, then it's saying that any extra cash flow you have that's free, in this case, say right here, $738 a month, that's free cash flow. So if you click repaying, you're going to take that extra $738 in cash flow and just throw it towards the mortgage. So you can see that it's going to pay off in 191 months. That's not as fast as the 15 at 180. Why is that? Because you're paying 3.375 here versus 4% here. So it's costing you an extra 11 months, but it's giving you some flexibility in that your extra payment is discretionary versus, say, being fixed. But it's costing you a little bit extra money. And what's it costing you exactly? 122 versus 149. It's costing you about $20,000 over 30 years to have that flexibility.
Okay. Now I had where is it? My question was, all right, I put in the minimum, which shows on the 15-year time frame. I also had it checked off on savings.
Okay. So all right, so I'm setting minimum, and then I'm clicking savings.
Right.
All right, and then and what's your question?
I don't even see same number. Why don't I see? take a look at that again.
So just to explain it while you're looking, or if this helps. So when I do minimum, it's saying you're going to make the minimum required payment for each debt over 30 years, and that if you have any leftover cash or cash flow, it's going to go into your savings account. So here, this 738, because you click savings, that 738 is going to go into your savings account. Once you well, actually, it's make sure I'm looking at this right. Let's see. Yeah, well, any extra net cash, well, there is no extra cash flow because you're making the minimum payment. Sorry. So the payment's $23.73. You're paying $23.73. That's all you're paying. So that I was like, why is there no savings? It's because you're basically in that situation. When you make the minimum payment, that means you're getting to spend that extra $738 a month over the next 30 years or however long you have that savings. It wouldn't be 30 years. It'd be just until the other debt's paid off.
All right. Well, I guess my question is, you see the wealth impact shows $16,000 for the orange scenario.
Uh-huh.
But if you move the time frame to 15 years,
yep,
it goes to $60,000.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're kind of dealing with again, in reality, your 15 year is going to cost you more in the first 15 years than the 30 because you're paying a higher monthly payment. If you go with a minimum payment, you're spending $32.41 versus $23.73. You also have a lot of tax benefits on the 30. Potentially, or you'll have other offsetting factors. But if you look at the math here, at the end of 15 years, you've got no mortgage liabilities, but you've made $583,000 in payments. On the 30 year, you've only paid $427, but you still owe $240. So when you net that out, the difference is $144 versus $60. And we worked with a financial planning company that does software simulation for the financial planning industry, and on this particular topic, and because when you're doing a simulation, this time frame is important. If your time frame is 5 years, when I go here, you'll notice 44 versus 28. I mean, if the time frame is 5 years, you're simulating for 5 years. That's the real math over a 5-year period. You'll notice that the gap between these is not that wide because it's only a 5-year time frame. But that's the real math and the real dynamics over 5 years. If you go to 15 years, you'll notice that the time value of money, the lower interest rate, you're really starting to get out to where this is a much bigger number here. And again, this is not compared. This 60 is not compared to the 15. This is your 244 is your current. That's what you're spending. So on the 15-year fixed, you're better off by 388. That's 144 better than this number. On the 30, you're better off by 304. Compared to 244, that's better off by 60. So make sure you're not comparing the 30 to the 15. These are all comparing to doing nothing or keeping what you have today, which is your current scenario. And it's
so after 15, I mean, if you're on the minimum payment after the 15, if I have tax savings of 0 and property appreciation of 0, why does the number continue to go up if there are no? Is that assuming that the whole $3,241 is just going to be put into a savings account?
Which number's going up? Which number are you talking about?
Impact for the 15 year. If I have a time frame higher than 15 years.
All right, so let's take it out to 16, or let's say 16 years.
Does it assume that payment that no longer is being made towards the mortgage is just going into a 0% savings account?
That's correct, because now if you go minimum after 180 months, your minimum payment now drops to 0, right? So notice your payments at the end of 15 years were $583, $321. and then maybe there's one more payment, a half payment that had to be paid, $590. Watch what happens when I go out to the longer time frames. If you take the let's see, let me go out to 30 years. So over 30 years, why did the payment still go up? Because you still have taxes and insurance and stuff, right? But that's the only thing that's increasing after the 15th year. So my interest payments are $102,861. If I go out to 30 years, my interest payments are $102,861. But my taxes, my homeowner's insurance is still $214. It's still going up each year because I still have to. I mean, not going up, but I'm still paying that each year. So those are being factored in. But my principal payments at the end of 16 years are still $373. So the only number that's variable after the mortgage is paid off is the variable taxes and insurance. So when I go out to 30 years, if I'm comparing this out 30 years, you'll notice that the only thing that changed here was this number. Just like here, see, I'm paying the same amount. I'm now paying the same amount for all of these, but the interest payments went up and the principal payments went up for these other loans because they weren't paid off yet. And when you get out to 30 years, you can see that the 30 year with a quarter, because I'm paying 6/8 higher interest rate, and I'm paying that over a full 30 years in that scenario, the savings is only $16,780. Now that's assuming a 0% growth rate. See, if I'm taking this cash flow, or if I'm taking any cash flow and putting it in a 0% account, I'm still paying 4% interest on it. If I could earn 4% on that money, it's going to affect some of the, it's going to affect any well, it's not on minimum because nothing's ever going into my savings account on minimum because I'm always paying the minimum account or the minimum payment in that situation. But if I was, say, on fixed where I was paying the same amount and extra cash was going into savings, then that after-tax savings rate would make a difference. But it doesn't make a difference if you're paying the minimum because you're never putting any extra cash flow into savings. You're just making
them. Change that, it won't affect the numbers as long as you're on the minimum.
Say it again.
If as long as you're on the minimum, it doesn't matter what tax savings rate you have in there. It's not going to affect the numbers.
That's right, because you don't have anything going into savings. You're always just paying the absolute minimum payment to service that debt.
Okay, let me see.
So if this was a scenario, go out 30 years making the minimum payment, I can say, look, you're better off by $180,000 with the 15, $16,000 with this, and $28,000 with this. And if you go through and follow the interest and the principal and the payments and the house value and stuff, that'll all bear itself out.
All right. Well, what I was trying to do, so what I'm coming across is I've heard this more than one time. People say to me, "Oh, I've already paid into my current mortgage 7 years. Even though the interest rates are lower, it doesn't seem to make sense."
Absolutely.
Eligible for a 25-year program or a 20-year. I don't have it as so it'd be nice to compare, doing apples to apples, kind of,
exactly. And this is exactly what that was designed for. If you watch some of the videos on YouTube and stuff, this is something I've been harping on a lot lately. This is where you go with the fixed payment and you click repaying, because this is the biggest objection we keep getting from people, right? Is that I want to figure out, I mean, think about it. This client has 237 months to go. They're afraid that you're taking them to a new 30-year mortgage and stretching their payment out to 30 years, and that's why their payment's going down. And what you're able to say to them now is, let's get rid of the 15 for a second, because it's just going to be easier to see the example we're talking about right now. So you're spending $3,000. You're spending $3,000. Huh?
How do you get rid of the 15-year?
You can add or subtract any program. So you just click the WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it affected it on the bottom.
Absolutely everything. Yeah. So everything here is good. So you can build up and down whatever you can, and they don't go away. They just are hidden from your presentation and from your reports. So if you shrink it here, not only will the client not see it on the software, but on all the reports, you're only going to see the 3 options. You can even suppress current. You can say, let's just compare a 32 with this scenario to this scenario, and now it's going to benchmark side by side the two and say this would have you debt-free in 205 months, this would have you debt-free in 203 months. So you can do anything you want. What you see is what you get. Just subtract or add the program above, and it's going to recalculate everything for you below. But if I'm doing this scenario here, I'm going to tell the client you're spending $3,111 a month, and you're going to do that for the next 262 months.
But automatically, once you took out the 15, it took the highest, which is the current.
Which is the new current, yeah. And that's why I always hit the refresh to make sure you've got that, because now I can benchmark off of this payment and say this is what you're going to spend, and I'm going to make you pay the same amount, because the only way I can do a fair comparison for you, Mr. Client, is to show you making the exact same payment each month that you're going to make today on any other scenario. It's the only way I can be fair. And what you want to be able to look at is you're worried that I'm going to take your term and extend it, and that's going to create a savings for you. So to do that, let me show you what's going to happen. You're going to spend $311.04 a month. You're going to do that for the next 262 months, and you're going to be debt-free. If you go with either of my two scenarios here and spend $311.04 a month, the exact same amount, you're going to be debt-free in 205 or 203 months. And look at what you're spending. You're going to spend $1.19 million irregardless. But I'm showing you how you're going to take off 57 months and save $142,624. And typically what I would do is I would actually take this down to, so I'm going to actually take it down to, say, 22 years. So look at the mortgage liability. It's 0. I'm sorry, I meant to go a little bit, let's see, let's go down a little bit more. Okay. Let's see. Let's go down one more year, and I'll show you why I like to do this. All right, so look at 17 years. So I'll actually do the presentation at 17 years, because to me that's more meaningful. In 17 years, if you do what you're doing today, you're going to still owe $124,852. If you go with my scenario here, your mortgage balance is going to be $771. If you go with this scenario, your mortgage is going to be 0, and you're going to have already got an extra $39.74 sitting in your checking account. All things being equal, with no out-of-pocket expense, which of these three scenarios speaks to you?
All right, so
does that make sense?
What I'm saying is for the wealth impact of $124,000, this is at a 0% interest rate, what we're really getting is $3,101 for the difference between 262 months and 205 months, which would be, what, 57 months of times 3,111?
Well, remember, yeah, I mean, that's probably correct, because we're not doing a tax adjustment here. So, you can go through and figure 124,081. So 124,081 divided by about 57 months is equal to about, that's an average of 2176. Because remember, time value of money, you're paying more principal and less interest over time as you get closer. That's something that people often misunderstand. When I say you're saving $738 a month here in payment, that's a real savings. That's the real payment difference.
The numbers seem to jive there, but that's because the 3,111 is including taxes and insurance.
Well, it's including principal and interest. So principal is balance sheet neutral, right? I mean, so it's the interest savings that's the portion of this that you're going to save over time, and your interest amount goes down with every single payment you make. So what you can do with someone is say, I'm going to save you $124,081. And the way I like to do it is I'll say, I'm going to save you $124,081 over the next 205 months. Because in 205 months, you're going to be, debt-free. So if you took that 124,081 divided by 205, you're saving them an average of $605 a month. Now, right here, it says your payment savings is 738. That's true, but that's based on the payment savings at closing. Your average payment savings over that time period is going to be 605 a month because you're paying more and more principal and less interest over time. But that's the beauty of the way we've laid this out here is you can take any objection they have and answer it very simply by saying, if you were my client, I'd say in the next 17 years you're going to spend 634, 652 if you keep your current mortgage. I'm going to recommend that you spend 634, 652 in my two scenarios as well. The difference is I'm going to have you debt free in 17 years versus still owing 124, 852. And see, you can see here's the difference. 124, 850. The difference is you got a mortgage balance here. Here you still owe 771. So take 771 minus 124, 852. You get 124, 081. That's the wealth impact.
Oh, okay.
So we've taken this and made it, because if you put multiple variables in front of a client, you melt their noggin. And what we've done here, and we had to go through 30, 40 revisions to do this, is we got it down to the simplest level. First, we want the payments to be the same. Second, house value is going to be the same. Third, then the real difference is what's your mortgage liability at that particular time period. What's it going to look like? See, if I go out to 20 years, watch what happens. You'll now see there's a savings balance because I'm spending the same amount. So this is another way to explain the same thing, right? They still owe $22,000 in 21 years. In 22 years, they're debt free. Their goal is to pay off their house and start saving for the future, right? So in 22 years, they're going to have spent $821,315. What are you going to have to show for it? You'll have a house worth $972, no mortgage, and you will have put $7,444 away because you pay off your mortgage that year and you're able to put that difference in your savings account. If you go with my scenario, you'll have the mortgage paid off in 17 years and you'll have already gotten $150,069 put away at the same time period by year 22. This is where your after-tax savings rate kicks in. So watch this. If I take this up to 5%, which is, say, what they expect to earn on their savings, watch the savings balance. Just jump to 169 because now they're getting 5% growth on that money as they save it.
Now, I heard you say in your webinar that financial planners told you 6% was conservative. For the average person out there, like me, that doesn't have a financial planner that can make 6% on a deal, you're looking at 1% in a CD right now. What do you typically use? Do you use that 6% or?
I typically use 4.5 or 5 if I'm in a conservative situation where I've got a client that I'm going to use what the client tells me. I won't pick a number. If I'm doing a case study, I will. But if I'm talking to a client or someone, or even a client that's working with an advisor, I ask the advisor, "What would you like me to use on your cases?" And they'll tell me what they like to typically recommend or illustrate at. If a client says, "I'm going to put this money in my checking account or in a CD," then I'm going to put in 1%, and it's going to calculate that they would have $153,799 saved at the end of 22 years at a 1% growth rate.
The other thing, if I was noticing it correctly, is if you have the after-tax savings in at 6%, it kind of shows more benefit to not pay down their mortgage. They're better off taking that savings and just investing it. And is that the whole point of why financial planners would want to work with you?
Well, that's a big part of it, because let's say the advisor can earn 6%. All right, so look at repaying is going to save me $166,886. Let's look at saving now. With one click, $249,742. So with one click, I can toggle between whether or not this client is better off saving or repaying with their extra cash flow. And at a 6% average return, they're better off taking the $738 a month and giving it to their advisor at 6%, because now you just took their wealth impact savings to $250,000 over 22 years. And that's mind-boggling. But I can't do that unless I've got a client or an advisor that feels comfortable that they could earn a 6% rate of return.
All right, so on the savings, on the Wealth Act, it shows at 6%, taking that payment and investing it, not putting it back in the mortgage, will make them $249,000 over 22 years. And if you click on repaying it,
absolutely. So all we're doing, saving or repaying, is saying if you have extra cash or cash flow, all right, there's two things you can do with it. You can either leave it in your checking account, and that's savings, and if you do that, you're going to earn some return, or you can apply it towards the mortgage, and that's repaying. If you're
the only time that 6% kicks in is once you've paid off the mortgage, and now the extra payments is just going to savings.
You got it.
And the other one, it's all going into savings.
That you got it.
Okay. All right. Let me.
And we built that because we have clients like Ameriprise and Schwab that use this as part of their, planning practice, and they wanted to be able to help a client figure out. So now, watch. If this was 3%, 154, 166 if I'm repaying, 122, 177 if I'm saving. Why? Because I'm earning 3% on my savings, but I'm paying 4% in my borrowing. So it's going to cost me more to have that money go into a savings account. What about if it's 4%? If it's 4%, should savings and repaying be the same? They are to the penny. Because if I'm earning 4% in my investment account and paying 4% on my borrowing, then whether I save or repay is exactly the same.
All right, because it's after tax.
Yep, because you're using an after-tax rate.
Okay. All right, this is starting to make sense to me now. Let me see. Let me see. I was trying to illustrate the wealth impact of investing monthly savings. Which is half the savings. Oh, yeah, there was one where I was just choosing half of what their savings would be between their old and their new, because they said if they want to save some money every month. So I dropped that payment from $31.11 to $27.27.
Yeah, so you in that case you would just use fixed, and you'd say 27.27, and it's going to apply 27.27 to each of these scenarios, which is a halfway. But then the problem with that is you still have to pay 31.11 here, so you're going to have to use 154,678 out of your savings account because you got to come up with that extra money from somewhere. So we assume that you're pulling money from savings or whatever. But we'll let you do just about anything you can imagine here.
All right, that's what with the current mortgage and that 15-year, I was then paying less than what I needed to pay. So you're saying it'll just show a negative in the savings balance?
Yeah. So we're always to do an accurate financial plan. You're always doing a balance sheet neutral analysis. So let's say the client said, I'm going to pay 30%. The software is smart enough to say, okay, if you want to pay $3,000 a month and your actual mortgage is $3,011, we're going to have to pay an extra $111. So where does that money come from? It's going to have to come from another source like your savings. So we're using the savings balance to show any positive or negative numbers. If I was going to pay $4,000 a month, it's going to say, okay, well, you only owe $3,111. You're paying $4,000, and we're going to take that extra and we'll put that into your savings account. So it's always, again, making sure that you don't compare apples to oranges to giraffes with your client by normalizing that. That's why we recommend you use the default, because that's the simplest for people to understand. You're taking the highest payment option, which if the client says, I can't pay this, then make it go away. Just hide it, because it's silly to show something that's not relevant. If they can pay it, then that means that if they can pay $32.41 for 15, they could pay that for each of these, and that is the way financial planning software works. You always normalize around one payment so that you've eliminated variables for your client. They're not. If I go minimum here, and I try to explain to you the financial benefit, well, what's the first thing the client's going to look at? Well, I'm paying $833 here, $633 here, $620. How do I really know what's better for me? I'm paying totally different amounts. I mean, you're still showing a benefit, but you're really not comparing apples to apples for people.
Well, for that kind of scenario where I said they want to save some money, but I can still show them a benefit. Is there any way, a better way, put an extra payment? Okay, you're at $31.11. You want to save $300 a month. Let's say the minimum payment is $2,800. You can do a fix at $2,800, but then it messes up the.
Oh no, absolutely. So let's say we go with minimum, and now let's put the minimum in for each. And what you want to do here, though, is let's just say on these two payments you'd like to pay extra. How much extra would you like to pay?
Oh, I don't know, $300.
All right. So see the little calculator beside each box? If you go with minimum, you can click this box, and you can do anything you can imagine. So I'm going to add an extra payment of $300, and I'm going to pay that monthly, and I'm going to pay that until the loan is paid off, or I'm going to pay that for all time. All time means just whatever your slider. So in this case, they pay it for 22 years. And then on this one, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pay an extra payment of $300, and I'm going to pay that monthly, and I'll pay that, until for the time period I've got. So now notice what it just done. So you're paying $31.11 here, $32.41 here. You're paying $23.73 plus an extra $300, so you're paying $26.73, and here you're going to pay $26.42, and that's all calculated for you below into your payments. It's showing the wealth impact. So now you've got positive 89 or positive 98,666.
Okay, so that's a better way. The way I did it was I just reduced everything to 2727, which messed up the current one. The better way to do it is just to do the minimum from the calculators and add, say, hey, you're saving $700 and whatever it was, $69 a month. Let's just add $300 of that savings back into your mortgage. And
yeah, that's right. Let me show you another real cool trick. They have 262 months to go, right?
Right.
So I come up here, I click on this, and I delete this, and I put in 262. All right, and it says you need to pay an extra $355. So I come in here, put $355 monthly for my time period, and click Save. All right, now I go over to this one, same thing. I'm going to put 262. And it says 363. So I come in here and say I'm going to pay 363 monthly for all time. All right, and look how cool this is. You're debt free in 262, 263, 263. So in other words, I've now normalized my target future payoff so that I'm debt free at the exact same time. But and I'm going to get rid of the 15 again just to kind of clarify.
I emailed you a suggestion about doing that. You already have it done.
Absolutely. So now I can really show something cool to the client. I can say, you're spending $31.11 a month. I can, for $2,700, say $2,700, I can have you debt free in the exact same time period, which means you get to do what? You get to play with and do anything you want to with the other $400 a month that I'm saving you. And that $400 a month is free. It's free money. You can go buy a new car. You can save it for college if it's up to you. But I can actually show you what exactly you would need to pay each month. The guy that we're having on Thursday for our weekly coaching call, Troy, this is what he's doing in a big way in his market, is he's sitting down with clients, and his baseline is, what would it take you per month to do what you're already doing, and then letting them decide what they want to do with their freed up cash flow. And he's finding that that's really resonating with a lot of his prospects.
Yeah, that's an approach I'm comfortable with too, is showing them, for whatever reason, people forget the power of the interest rate. They just see their monthly payment and they know that they've paid into a term. Being able to show them how they can use a lower interest rate to their advantage is powerful.
Yeah, compound interest works both ways. It works against you when you're borrowing, and it works for you when you're saving. And what we're really doing here is we're showing them how to save money. If I was doing this, I'd go with something like 375. Use kind of a round number, and say for 375 extra, I can have you debt free in 259 months. And then what you're really doing is they're smart enough. 2373 plus 375 equals 2748. I'm spending $3,111. That's $363 a month that I get to keep now that I wouldn't get to keep. And that's tax-free, because another point I would make is $363 of savings is tax-free money to you. For you to have an extra $363 a month to spend, you'd have to go out and make about an extra $550 a month in your job to have that left over after taxes. So this is like giving you a $550 a month pay raise, putting an extra $363 a net spendable in your pocket each month.
Okay. All right, I'm starting to get it now. And if you can't present this in person, you do the, what's it called, the web?
Yep, you got, so if this is my, so let's say this is the presentation I want to deliver, because both of these are showing them their debt-free date, their savings, their wealth impact. Then I can come over here to the present tab, and I've got 4 options. I can do as a PDF, which I just check whatever pages I want to show them, and then once I can do cover, introduction, the 5-page summary, the loan am tables. It's up to you as to what you want to show the client.
I'm afraid of using all those and confusing them.
Yeah, I typically recommend, if you're going to send something to a client, I usually do cover, intro, and then I pick between the 2 or the 5, because that's enough for them to see the benefits. If they come sit down in the office, or you're sitting down with them face to face, the pound of paper is really impressive, and I'll tend to go with the whole Monty, because I'm there to interpret and answer questions, and I want them to look, and see that I'm really prepared, right? And this is, I don't do direct retail production, but I work and do cases for advisors and people that I do coaching for and stuff. And that's the way we teach them to do this, is if you're just sending something out. So if I'm going to meet with them, I'm going to check all these and click as a print PDF, and I'm going to have this really nice presentation ready for them to go when they come in. It's going to build that for me so I can, print or do whatever. If I was going to send them a web link so that they could, and so here's yours, mortgage loans, client, and you can see it's going to go through all the stuff. I highlighted this one, so it's showing the closing costs. It's giving me 1 page for each, the monthly payment, and then the wealth impact over 22 years. And then it's got, my target dates payoff, my AM tables. I mean, all that stuff is going to be there. If I was going to send them a link, I'd probably do something, more like, I like the cover, intro, and the 5-page. Click as a web PDF, and this is going to go build this, and it's going to, so you'll get, because we're in your software, it's going to go in and send you an email in a few minutes saying this is ready, and you'll actually have a web link you can send to them where they can view the plan you just created, and it's just going to be a 7-page plan, the cover, the intro, and the 5-page summary. If I want to send it to them as a web, go ahead.
I had something. When you do the live demo, you're putting in their email?
That's correct. So we're using the live demo tool right now for our call together. So all I did was sent you to the Meet Todd. So you could go get a domain at GoDaddy or something like I did, and direct it to this link, because this is your personal link. So you could go get a meetmikenow.com and have that forward to this meeting room. This is your personal address for your desktop sharing room. And then instead of giving them that address, I gave you meettodd.com, which just is forwarding you to my address. And you came in, and we're doing this live right now. Where are you at, Mike?
I'm on your present page.
No, I mean, where are you in the U.S.?
Oh, California.
Yeah, so I'm in North Carolina, so we couldn't be farther apart, but we're having a pretty cogent conversation here. And then all you have to do, you don't even have to send an email to your client. Just say, go to ... .com, and I'll be waiting for you. And that's it. And then all you do is click this button, and this opens you up and logs you in automatically to your window, and you'll be waiting for them. And when they come in, just click your share desktop button, and away you go.
Okay. All right, I'll have to try that with a friend.
I'd recommend do that with somebody in your office, because if you can do it with someone in the office next to you, you can do it with someone across the country.
Okay.
And then these are the bonus materials if you want it. If you're doing sometimes what I like is the educational. Like I'll do a cover, intro, and the 5-page summary, and maybe I'll put the Bar Smart, Repay Smart, and I'll build that, and that creates a really nice web presentation. This is the same thing as this. These two are the exact same thing with one different. If I use the as a website, okay, and I click that button, it's going to go publish the page, but then it's going to wrap it inside of a secure HTTP encrypted login. So what's happening right now is it's building the report, and it's done, and it says you can view it here, but you've got to give your client an email address and a password. And then when you save that, so let me just make something up here. I'll just say that you're going to call this toddb@knife.org. Let's say that you're sending this to me, and this is my email and my password. When I click save, it now has set up a secure email and password login for the client to view the plan, and it actually has written an email that I can send to them. So when I click this, it puts all that into the email and says your plan is ready, go here, log in with this email and password. So it's done the exact same thing that we did above, except instead of it being open where anyone with this link could see it, only a client that has this username and password can view it, because some banks and stuff would not allow us to have a client plan that wasn't password protected. But if you're not, if you have our open platform, you can choose whether you want to give them just a web link or whether you want to send them to them as a secure website.
Ideally, you'd want a live demo so you can point things out.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where you're blowing people away. I mean, I can, if we're sitting here talking, I can click on the repay tab and come in here, and I always say click. Here's what you're doing now. You're debt free here in 21 years, 22 years, and you're going to get to save this money. And this is what I'm recommending. I'm recommending you do the 30-year fixed with a quarter credit. Now look, you're going to be debt free in 14 years, 1 month, and in the same cash flow, you're going to have this much in savings. And again, which would you rather be? You want to be this guy or this guy, because you're going to spend the same amount of money either way. And I can show them stuff like that doing a live demo. And the other thing that it does for a lot of people is you not only are you showing them the value of this, but you're not giving them all your work product, because the last thing I want to do is do all this work, give them a nice presentation, and have them go take it to another lender and try to get the same presentation at a lower rate. If I show them the stuff online, they get to see all of what I'm doing, but maybe I just send them. Some people say, will you give them the whole plan? I said, no, I'll send them the 2-page summary as the physical deliverable, and I'll show them the full report if they're in my office or if I'm doing an online desktop share. And I give them that as part of the benefit of working together with me. You're getting all that experience and expertise.
Okay. All right. I think I understand better now. I was getting a little confused with the numbers on, I have a 15-year and then to 20. I put it. What happens in 20-year? Why are the numbers changing so much? And I understand that now.
Yeah, once you get the hang of it, you'll realize that just about any scenario you put in here, you can't break it. And the best thing to do is to go with our fixed default. Start with that, and if you need to get creative, you can still do that. You can see I can still use the fixed payment and add an extra payment. I can add monthly payments. I can add rental income, lump sum. I can show escrow refunds. I mean, I've got all kinds of manual control that I can get into if I need it. But the key is to make this easy for the client to understand.
Okay, so I just went back to the borrow page, and I'm trying out that extra payment feature that you told me.
Uh-huh.
So it's matched up to 262 months. That's how many months they have left on their current mortgage. It's set to add 382. Oh, that's not what happened there.
It's because we're both logged in at the same time, so I got to stop so I don't overwrite you.
Oh, okay. You can see what I'm doing now?
Yeah, I'll hit refresh after you do it.
Okay. Months to debt free, why aren't they the same now?
Because remember, we've got it fixed right now, so it's adding that to the 3,011,104. So we want to go back to the minimum. Click the minimum button and and so at 382 you're at 257.
Okay. All right. I don't expect this one to change much. But 2, 3. All right. This is what I'm going to be using the most initially. At least is the minimum payment with basically doing it apples to apples. Months, the number of months they have remaining compared to the new loan.
Yep.
If they want to pay at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool presentation. And again, I always tell people, find a presentation that you like and stay with that consistently. And if a client wants you to do more, you have that capability. But once you get in a groove of what you're really comfortable with and you're showing people apples to apples comparisons, you're going to find that your conversion rates will go up dramatically.
Okay. Now, I heard through another loan officer that someone in his office called up a financial planner at, I forgot the name of the company, and got like 10 reverse mortgage deals. Now, I'm assuming the financial planner, the reason they like the reverse mortgages is they're taking the whole payment that people would have made otherwise and investing it.
Well, it really, the old answer of it depends. It depends on what that particular client's trying to accomplish or do, and do they need cash flow? Do they need liquidity? Remember, you can illustrate reverse mortgages with our software. It's one of our options. We've got some videos on it, but the reverse mortgage is an option, so you can pick that in here. And if you pick reverse mortgage, we'll negatively amortize the loan for you, and you can actually compare reverse mortgages to forward mortgages. And we even have a calculator over here under calculators. When you click on the calculators button, and you'll notice right here there's reverse vision integration. You can go in and actually do the calculations for a reverse and compare a reverse mortgage for a client to a forward mortgage to help them figure out which is better.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'd like to learn how to do that. Now, with this client, they have a HELOC right now. They just refinanced the HELOC. They have $230,000 at 3.5%, and they're making an extra $650 payment every month. They're rounding it off to $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
When I try to add that in, it messed up the numbers, or at least it appeared to for me. What would you do? Would you add that in, or just keep it separate?
No, I definitely want to add it in because that's what they're doing today. That's part of their baseline payment. So on the manage screen, if this client here was actually paying an extra $600 in this case, you want to put that in as their current payment and just say, the current payment is $2,514, but they're actually paying $3,100. And if you do that, then that now is going to baseline, and you're going to compare what they're spending today, to their other options. It's also going to then calculate the remaining months properly and stuff like that. I always want to, again, my job and my goal is to help the client quickly and easily understand what's best for them. And the best way to do that is to start where they are today. This is what you're doing now, Mr. and Mrs. Client. You're paying this amount plus an extra $600. You're spending X today. I want to show you how spending the exact same amount of money, what I can do for you. And if you keep it that simple, people will literally love you to death.
All right, so I just added the HELOC I have.
Is it for which client?
For this client.
For the same client?
Right. So I added under current liabilities.
Gotcha. And it says they owe. I see they owe $230 and they're paying $670.83 a month.
Right. They're just paying $2,000 a month. They want to pay it off quickly though.
But they're actually paying $670.83 a month.
That's the actual their obligation, but for the interest. But they're paying $2,000. So what is that, like almost $1,400?
Okay, so go back in and on current payment put in $2,000 because that's what they're paying now. You want to put in on the current payment. You want to put in what their current payment is. What are they actually paying? And then when you come back, it should show that the principal and interest payment is $2,000.
Is it calculating how much of that is going towards principal and interest for that?
Yeah. Go back to your screen, or look at my screen, because I'm looking at your screen. I'll kind of show you what that does. So you'll notice now you've got $25.14 on the first and $2,000 a month on the second, right?
Okay.
So now when I go to the borrow screen, watch what happens. It's going to show both their mortgages and the amount they're paying each month, and it's showing the full payment, the tax impact, and you can actually see beside each amount it shows the number of payments they have remaining. They have 262 on the first, and they have 141 to go on the second. And it actually even shows 194. That 194 number means that if they keep spending $5,111.04 a month, both of these debts would be paid off in 194 months. But now notice below, if I was going to consolidate these, here's what I would do. This says 600. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say 600. Oops. I'm going to put in 600 as loan amount. I'm going to put in, what is this? I know you've got the closing costs in here. Let's say I'll just do, let me just do 600 right now for easy math. 600 and 600, right? So in these three scenarios, I'm paying off the first and the second mortgage with a new loan of $600,000 at whatever, if this is what I wanted to do. And it's going to go through, and everything's going to flow through. The payment savings, you'll notice the payment difference here. And I can go all the way down below and do my fixed or my minimums, and it's going to show the savings and the cash flow payoffs. I'm going to click the Fixed App button here. So now see, it's got the same amount being paid across each. 199, 167, 159, and 156. So 117,000 in savings. So I can go through and compare it that way if I want to.
And this assumes that they're making the minimum payment on the first mortgage and they're making an extra payment on the HELOC?
That's correct. That's your current, and now we're comparing that to this new scenario here, which is a first mortgage, of 600 in each scenario. Or I can say I don't want to pay this off. I want to keep it, and if I say no, then it's going to show a new mortgage of, I can say a new mortgage of $370, and I can keep the old mortgage of $230, paying $2,000 a month, and it's still going to do all the math right for you and compare everything correctly side by side.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to. My first suggestion to them was just to consolidate the loans, but they didn't want to do that, and I wasn't sure how to even compare that. Is there a way to compare that in Borrow Smart?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's let me do this because I don't want to mess up this case too much. But I'm going to go to the Manage tab here, and you can always do this. So I've got Robert and Deli Harris. I'm going to click Duplicate Client. That makes a copy of everything for that client. So now I've got a total copy of that. So this is a good way to, I'll call this sample plan. So now everything's here, so I can keep the other one and maybe play around with some different ideas here. The way I would compare this is and I'm going to call this one here consolidate to 30. So I've got a 972, and I'm going to do a 30-year fixed, and we'll call that. So we're going to compare consolidating the two versus keeping the first, or keeping the second and doing a new first. So I'll make this 605. That'll give them some cash back, and we'll make this what, 4%. So now you can see what and then yes, I'm going to pay this off. So I've got consolidate to 30. I've got a new 30-year fixed of $605,000 at 4%. So I'm borrowing 600 here. I'm borrowing 605 here. And then below, I'm going to say 30-year fixed first mortgage. I'll just call this keep second. Okay. So on this one, here, and I'm just going to compare the two. I'm going to get rid of this one below, so we're keeping it simple. I'm just going to compare current to consolidate to 30 to a 30-year first, keep second. All right, so with this, I'm saying yes, pay off the first, don't pay off the second. And then all I need to do here is say 370. So I've got a 30-year fixed at 605 at 4, or a 30-year fixed at 370, keeping the second mortgage of 230. And now I'm good to go. And now everything below is going to, here, let's actually make this 375. So that we're borrowing 605 for both of these, right? So both, I got 2,000 cash in my pocket here, 29.26 cash in my pocket here. My payment here is 51111. My new payment here is 3485 or 4387. And let's compare apples to apples and see which of these is best for you. We're going to hit the refresh to make sure we've got the highest payment, which is 511,104. That's what you're paying today. I'm going to answer for you the question, should you consolidate or should you keep the first and keep the second and keep spending what you're spending today? 51104, 51104, 51104. Let's take a look. You've got 199 months to go to pay off all of your current liabilities. You're going to spend $1.893 million. Let's go see. 200 months is about 16? It's about 17 years. So I'm going to go at the same time frame, about 17 years. All right, so in 17 years, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to spend $1,042,000, have a house worth $972,000, have no mortgage liabilities, and save $23,982. Go with my consolidate to a 30. You're going to spend $1,042,000, have a house worth $972,000, have $117,775 in your savings account. So you're going to be better off by $95,000. Go with a 30-year first and keep the second. You're going to be better off by $107,000. So you're better off keeping the second, okay? But now I got a caveat there, right? That's assuming that the second does what? Is the second variable?
I don't have the details, but after 10 years, most of them change.
Yep. So if you keep this at 3.5, sure, this is going to be better if they assume that this mortgage never changes because your new cost of borrowing is higher, right? But if you go through and I want to model this to say what's it going to do, then on the Manage tab here where I set this up, where you added that second mortgage right here under Details, you know, it says equity line of credit. Most likely it's probably a HELOC with a 10-year term and a 25-year draw. And then you can go through here and say the first adjustment is going to be after 120 months, after 10 years, and it can go up 1% every 1 month and to a maximum of 10%, and a life cap of 10 and a floor of 4. So you put in whatever their stuff is, and the margin is 2.5, and the index is prime. Let's just say the index right now is currently 3, and it's based on prime. And I want to use a worst case scenario, and I click Save. Now it's going to model for you. So the first 10 years, or whatever the time frame is, are going to be the same if it's fixed for 10 years. Actually, it's probably not fixed. It probably starts amortizing in 10 years, but it's probably adjustable right now, isn't it? Most ARMs are, adjustable. Once you take them out, they can adjust, after the first month, right? They can adjust based on, prime plus some margin.
Right.
But you can put that in there, and now when you go to the borrow screen and you go down below and look at the numbers, it's going to actually figure out for that client what's the best case or worst case scenario over that time period. How much better off are you? And notice now, look at the difference, 340, 106, because now it's going through and it's simulating that ARM adjusting based on whatever parameters you put in there, and even though they're paying the extra $2,000 a month, it's going to go through and make adjustments to their interest and everything else, even though they're paying the extra payment. So this is really a very powerful tool to show someone even with an extra $2,000 a month, this is what could happen if rates adjust. But you notice that there's no change here because why? You got it all fixed at 4%. So if I was working with this client, I would show them how much more powerful it is to consolidate. It's not that you have a little bit lower interest rate here. It's that over the next 3 to 5 years, that could go up to 5 or 6%, in which case this is going to cost you a lot more than consolidating.
Right. They're on the prime rate plus, which can adjust, but then in 10 years, it'll become fixed for the next 20 years. So it's like refinance again.
Absolutely. Hey, and I've got to jump on another call, but hopefully this has helped a whole bunch. I've recorded this because I thought we might cover some topics. So when I'm done, I'll post it up on YouTube, so you'll have it there as a resource.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you very much.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, man.
Take care.
Take care.